Okay, so we're back with the review of episode 7 of season 2, Interview with the Vampire. This episode was called I Could Not Prevent It. So this episode starts off, it opens with Claudia, Louis, and Madeleine being abducted and thrown into the dungeon of the coven. And so in real time, as Louis is telling this, he's telling it, heavily baited with melancholy. He's reminiscing, hearing Claudia in pain while they were being tortured and he couldn't get to her. And they are blindfolded and brought on the stage where they are revealed to be beaten, battered. Their ankle tendons are cut, so they're unable to walk. The coven is behind them, and they're already in this role with looking as if they're judges in a court on trial, and they're collectively using their power to put this compressing pressure on their skulls to disorient them when they try to speak up for themselves, so make it feel as if it's pounding so hard that they can't get their words out. So as they're sitting there, Louis is starting to have this growing feeling of some familiar scent, like some familiar present there, and it's overpowering him. And it's just building and building and building, and he doesn't know what it is. And then voila, Santiago presents Lestat to the stage, and Lestat is there in the flesh with Louis, Claudia, and Madeleine on stage in Paris. And Lestat being who he is, he immediately comes out and garners the audience's attention. And Santiago starts to do the prose, and he's using Claudia's diaries as a Bible for him to swear on. And Lestat says it's their time to hurt. And so in real time, Daniel starts to pick up on immediately. So your current boyfriend, who is Armand, sets you up to your old boyfriend, who is Lestat, and then he puts you on the stage to make a mockery out of it, of a play of you being held to task of what you did to him. Like, do you not pick that up, that that's fucked up? And so Santiago starts to lead the narrative that this is a story of, butchery. And Lestat disrupts him and says, no, it's a story of love. So we start getting into Lestat's retelling of his first love, Nikki. And Santiago says he was once a part of the theater, but he died. And Lestat was like, no, that's not just what happened. He had help in that. And that's when he started to look towards, and this is where we and Louis, for the first time in this episode, see Armand. And he's back there looking like he's being held captive with Sam standing in front of him. And so Louis is thrown off, like he's like, what the hell is going on? But he's thinking, oh, Armand is being held captive. But Armand is stronger than Sam. So if he wanted to get away, he could have. And so Daniel is picking up on that. But, Louis keeps coming to his defense. So we're back in Paris, and Lestat is telling the story about how after Nikki died, it had been 100 years, and he had, arisen from being asleep in the ground, and he was in New Orleans, which was the humidified sister of Paris. And so he talks about when he first meets Louis in New Orleans, and he starts saying, how he felt as if Louis was calling out to him. And keep in mind, this is the first time that Lestat has seen Louis since he and Claudia, since they had that party and they did what they did, and they killed Antoinette and they attempted to kill Lestat, but Louis didn't follow through with it. So this is their first time. So it's all this unresolved feelings showing up. And Lestat, he's taking it all in. And then he turns to look to the audience and he says, Louis de Pont du Lac, like as in this arrogant air, like as if this man was, worldly. He wasn't just anybody. And so he starts to say that Louis was, sending thoughts out to him, telling him that he wanted him. And Louis was like, no the hell I wasn't. You lying. You lying. You was calling out to me, saying, come to me. And then Lestat is saying, well, how do you know that wasn't your thoughts that was really calling out to me? which is a valid point because yes, we can say that Lestat changed Louis into a vampire under, we could say, confused conditions or coerced conditions. But before they got to that, Louis was very much invested and intrigued and interested in Lestat as Lestat was with him. Like Lestat legit courted him. They were going out on dates. They were going to operas. He had, showed this man to his family. This was someone who he was very much interested in, and they had had sex and done all that before he actually got turned. So this was someone that he had deep feelings for. So don't try to act like, I was just the only one. So that's a great point to make. And so throughout this time, even though Lestat is angry with Louis, he's still trying to humanize him and calling him by his name, whereas Santiago keeps trying to villainize him by not even mentioning his name, just simply calling him the accused. So after he kind of goes off on this rant about how does Louis know he himself wasn't putting it out there, he kind of throws himself off. He's sitting down, and Santiago has to, keep prodding him back into the storyline. So he's getting back into the storyline, continuing to tell about him and Louis' life together. And there's this audience member that calls him, a gay slur. And so he teleports to the balcony where the soldier is, and he's pretty much reading the soldier's mind, saying, "Well, how would your squad feel if they knew that you left them high and dry? As they were actually, out on the battlefront, busting their gun, and you was in the back crying in the bush like a little bitch. Like, how would you think they would feel about that? Would they care about me loving another man, or would they care more about that?" And so he teleports back to the stage after he's embarrassed this man, and it's feeling as if the audience knows what's going on, but they're willing to just go along with it because it's entertaining, even though they know there's something really sinister under it. So he starts telling about how Louis struggling with vampirism, and what really led to the night of Claudia's making, which was the night of the town fire, which was, a result from Louis killing the alderman. And when he's telling this story, he starts by saying that, it started because Louis threatened him with loneliness. And he walks up to an audience member and touches him with this loneliness to show how painful it is, because Santiago is saying that's the worst thing you could do to a vampire, is pretty much damn them to loneliness. And so the audience member lashes out at Louis, and then Santiago is up on stage continuing to read the story from Claudia's book. So she's talking about the white angel and the black angel, and he's mimicking Claudia, making fun of her. And of course, this pisses Lestat off, and he turns around and goes back to the stage, and he continues telling the story. In real time, Daniel is picking up on little isms that I don't even think Armand is picking up on, that he's giving off, because Armand is disgusted by Lestat not sticking to the script, and Daniel's kind of picking up on, kind of like, well, why would you be so upset with that? How would you know he's not sticking to the script if you didn't know that there was a script? Like, what are you not saying? But we get back to the memory of when Claudia was made, where they're talking about it, and we learn that Lestat was initially against it, not because of him being jealous of what Claudia would mean to Louis and how that would play into their relationship. That was depicted in season 1. He was against it because he knew it was against the great laws. And it was against the great laws because of her age. And this was something that he was trying to explain to Louis, but Louis was so wrapped up in his sorrow from losing his humanity, from losing his family, that he wasn't really willing to listen to Lestat. He didn't care what Lestat was saying. And Lestat was trying to tell him, no, you need to care, because her life is going to be torturous. She's going to be in this 14-year-old body for the rest of her life. Like, for eternity. She's going to always be at war with herself. And Louis used Lestat's desire for him against him by saying, well, if you do this for me, I will never leave. And he knows that's what Lestat wants. And he's dragging Claudia, and he's like, I promise I will never leave. I promise I'll never leave. So eventually Lestat gives in because he wants Louis. And we find out that that's really how Claudia was made, and Louis has downplayed his part in it, and he's not willing to admit that, especially in Paris, because Claudia is questioning him. She like, did that really happen? Like, did you play more than a part in my existence in this tortured experience that I've been in through my vampirism? Like, did you know this is going to be bad for me? And he's like, no, playing it off. But in real time, in 2020, I'm saying 2024, with Daniel, he admits that, yeah, I did. I ignored it and I didn't listen to what he said because I was just so hurt. And we see a vision of Lestat that he's seeing in real time, and Lestat is saying how Claudia having her was an unforeseen joy. So we get transferred back to Paris, and they're talking about how because Claudia is around and she got Lestat in her, Lestat is her maker, she's rambunctious. You know, she's having all these kills. She's bringing unwanted attention to Louis and Lestat. And because at this time, Louis sees Claudia like as his baby, he coddles her and he doesn't want to reprimand her. So it's straining their relationship. And because of that, Louis feel like, I'm not going to choose you over my baby, so I'm going to cut off all intimacy with you. I'm not going to be pleasant with you. I'm just going to make hell for you in this house. And he uses that as an excuse to go be with Antoinette, which is bullshit, because he was with Antoinette before there was a Claudia. Like, Antoinette has always been a thorn in their relationship, and I don't think we really realize how long he was with that woman. Like, he was with that woman almost just as long as he was with Louis. And so that's bullshit. And so we also see, like, when Claudia comes back, what led to the fight. She been gone for 7 years that entire time. And we see that there's a difference in how the fight actually happens. Season 1, we just see Lestat as this aggressor, but in season 2, we see how Louis played a part in that as well. We see how Louis is provoking the fight in ways because Lestat wants to restrain himself. Lestat does not want to fight like this. But I believe that Louis wants to fight like this because he has pent up anger with Lestat. He's angry that Lestat has ruined his reality, has ruined his existence in his mind. He used to be a human. He used to have family. He used to have loved ones. Now, yes, he's get to living eternally, but he has no one but this man. And I think he's very angry at that. And he's not, I guess, comfortable enough to act on it on his own. So he's going to use Claudia as the crutch too. And so after they're fighting and everybody's all bloody, Lestat, his face is beaten in, is bloodied, and he has this sorrow tone, like he's weak, like he's almost begging, and he asks Louis, are you gonna leave me? And it's kind of seeing what really happened and how Claudia was made, and how he used Claudia as a way to promise he would never leave him. And now in this side of the relationship, he's going to use Claudia as a way to leave him. And so we hear Lestat's weakness, but then we hear Louis fucking cackle. Like, oh my God, it's so evil. It's almost, it's devilish sounding, because as Lestat, you hear his vulnerability. He's saying to Lestat, I'm going to chop your motherfucking head off. I'm going to have my hands around your neck till your eyes pop. I'm going to take it to the fucking park and feed it to the lions. Like, he's really, like, I don't give a fuck in this moment. And so Lestat responds in rage, and that translates to the point where we see in season 1 where he drags him and he takes him up in the sky. And so in this moment, Santiago was trying to make it small, like, oh, we're vampires, that doesn't mean anything. Don't think of it as a human. But Lestat interrupts and says, no, it is a big thing, because I intentionally broke him. I broke him because he wouldn't love me the way I wanted to. I wanted him to love me the way that I loved him. And because he wouldn't, I went and broke him. And he's crying and he's saying, how pretty much how bad can it be that because you can't have something, you destroy it? And he's saying that he saw Louis fall apart and he was clutching at the sky. He's crying and he's deeply, regretful on how he broke Louis, how he treated him, because he realizes what he did to Louis. He took all that he had from him, and because he wasn't behaving the way he wanted to, he just tore him apart. And so Claudia is sitting there, she not buying it. She's like, this bullshit. Like, so you just gonna take this apology? Like he's hurting you in this moment. This is just another round. And so Daniel in real time asked him how he felt about that. And he was like, well, it felt like another round in their relationship. Violence followed up with this deep, profound love. And Lestat becomes in a daze after he's telling this story of, you know, of how he broke Louis. And he says that, he wasn't worthy of Louis's forgiveness. And after that, he's getting back into character. So Claudia gets up and she like, well, good fucking job. You come up here and tell how you fucked him up and how you're so sorry. Let's all feel bad for you. Are y'all gonna do the same thing for me if I get up here and say how I poisoned him and how he did me wrong? And Santiago uses that as her saying that she admitted to something. But it's a good point. Like Lestat is up here able to get sympathy after he did what he did. So she sits down and she says, this was never really about her. He's only here for Louis. And once again, she's caught up in their love story and she's just a shingle on their house. And so everything continues to play the way that they wanted to. They tell how the coven found out about the real behind meaning of Louis and Claudia and how they signaled Lestat. And so in real time, we see that Louis is having a hard time coming to the end of telling this story because it's getting really heavy. He throws his serving of blood at the wall. And when he does this, we just see that, he's starting to break. We transition back to Paris, and Madeleine, who's coming in and out of consciousness, is brought up to make the choice of either joining the coven or dying because she was made against the coven's knowledge, the coven's leader knowledge, which is Santiago. So they want to make her choose between being killed or being in the coven. And she chooses to be with Claudia, and she essentially chooses death. So she's sentenced to death and she's, proven guilty. And it's really important, even though it's short lived, that someone chooses Claudia. We have to, remind that Madeleine sees Claudia in a way that we've never seen her before, all bright and lovely and beautiful and not, shrouded in a relationship that is Louis and Lestat. We get to see Claudia as her full person to be chosen, and that essentially hasn't happened. So for Madeleine to do that, it means the world to Claudia. And so they sentence Claudia to death as well and find her guilty. But her last wish, she asked for a man in the balcony to have his top hat removed. And Santiago, being a little bitch that he is, didn't want to give it. But Lestat said, give it to her. And so as he takes it off, she tells everybody in the audience, I've seen your face. So if there's an afterlife, I'm coming back to kill your ass. And you can tell that that unnerves the audience and the coven. And it really puts this idea that, yeah, you watching me get my judgment day, but don't think that this shit is over. I'm coming for your ass. And whatever dimension that there is one, I'm coming for your ass. And so Louis is found guilty. And when it's time to sentence him, the audience can't say death. They say banishment. And Santiago is fucking pissed. He's fucking pissed. And he looks over at Armand, and we see that it's showing that Armand is the reason why it didn't say death. So he's like, okay, banish him. And I'm going to banish him to Belgium, but they really banish him to something much worse. They banish him and they drag him off stage, and he's banished down into the crypt into a 2 by 7 foot box that's filled with rocks, so he can't move, and he's left there to starve to death. And so Claudia and Madeleine are left on stage, and the ceiling is opened, and Claudia and Madeleine burn to their final death. So Madeleine dies first, but Claudia goes out like a G. She is looking to the audience and she's singing her Baby Lou song, I Don't Like Windows When They're Closed. And it's so interesting that she's singing that because the audience loves Baby Lou and wanted to be entertained by her, but they're also willing to be entertained by her death. You know, they love you and they hate you. They'll watch you rise and they'll watch you fall. And she turns to look at Lestat, and Lestat is the very last person that she sees in the realm of any existence. And we see this devastated look, and it's so interesting to see and to know that he's the last person that she'll ever see, because she hated him, but she became him, and she is him. She is her maker. And Lestat resented Claudia for a lot of things, but she really was him. And Santiago says that the death that they saw, the audience tells them that it's not real. And we know that that's bullshit. It is real. So if you like the review, give it a thumbs up. But if you like the review when you thought of something or you saw something that I missed out on, you have your own perspective, let me know in the comments. And we'll be back with episode 8 of Interview with the Vampire Season 2.